Okay, let's do multiplying and dividing fractions and simplifying. Although this looks very scary, it's really just same as multiplication of fractions. So if you have like a over b times c over d, how do you multiply fractions? Is top to top, bottom to bottom, right? ac over bd. However, because it's asked to simplify, it must be that somehow, if you factor these quadratics, somehow they have the common factor with this bottom one. So there must be some kind of common factor. So here's what I mean. If you multiply, don't expand them because it's going to be even worse if you try to expand them. Just write it like this. But now expect somehow when you factor this or this, you get something in common with the denominator and you can cancel, okay? All right, so let's try to factor 5x squared plus 6x plus 1. Now I see that if you plug in -1, you get 0. Can you see that? 5 times -1 squared plus 6 times -1 plus 1 gives you 5 minus 6 plus 1, which is 0. Okay. Okay, so you can try to factor this by other methods, factor by grouping or some trial and error. But I would say if you happen to notice a number that you plugged in and you just get 0, in that case it's better to just use the factor theorem. What does the factor theorem say? Factor theorem says, if you plug in x equals to -1, and that gives you when you plug in -1 you get 0, that gives you 0. In that case, the polynomial that you played with is divisible by, it has a factor of x minus this number. Well, x minus -1 is x plus 1, right? So it's x plus 1. And so now all you have to do is to figure out what's this other number, right? And if you know one factor, it's really easy to find the other one because x times 5x gives you 5x squared, and 1 times 1 gives you 1. So it has to be this. There's nothing else that can produce the 5x squared and 1. And it just all you have to do now is just to check that you really do create this when you FOIL it out. Let's do that. X times 5x is 5x squared. X times 1 is x. 1 times 5x is 5x. 1 times 1 is 1. So it's 5x squared plus 6x plus 1. Okay, so indeed these are the same. So we've succeeded in factoring the first part. So that's x plus 1 times 5x plus 1. Okay, what about this other one? Well, 4x squared plus 4x minus 24. Notice that everything's divisible by 4. In that case, it's much easier to first factor out the common factor number. Then you have a simpler factoring to do. In fact, if the coefficient of x squared is 1, you just have to know which two numbers multiply to -6 and add to 1. And it's really 3 and -2. 3 times -2 is -6. 3 times -2 is -6. And 3 plus -2 is equal to 1. So these calculation tells me that it should be 4 times x plus 3, x minus 2. Okay, so this thing factors as 4 times x plus 3, x minus 2. And here I have x minus 2, 5x plus 1, and I see that indeed 5x plus 1 and 5x plus 1 are common, so they factor away. X minus 2 factors out, and you're left with x plus 1 times 4 times x plus 3, and I would just put the number in front. That's more customary. Now the next question is division of fractions. So you have a rational expression here, another rational expression here, you're dividing. And this again is similar to how you do with numbers. You see a divided by b. If you divide it by c over d, and there's something called keep, change, flip. Keep, and change the division into multiplication. And then c over d, you flip it, so it's d over c. Okay, so that's one way to say it. Or another way to really, this is a better way to think. See, this is division, right? Dividing by a number is same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So you take the reciprocal of this number and you multiply. That's a better way to say it, but so many of you know it as keep, change, flip, so this is fine too. It ends up being the same thing, okay? So let's use that. Let me first delete this. Let's use that. And so this must be x plus 3 over 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 times the reciprocal of this, which is x minus 2 over 6x squared minus x minus 2. Okay, and then again, because it's asking you to simplify, there must be some common factors. Multiplication of fraction is top to top, so it's x plus 3, x minus 2. We're trying to cancel factors, so don't multiply this out. 2x squared plus 3x plus 1, 6x squared minus x minus 2. Now let's try to factor these and see if we get anything. Okay, so 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. You can factor this by grouping, but I would suggest that you just do trial and error. Sometimes this faster. See, because if you have a 1, it has to be 1 and 1, or negative 1 and negative 1. But if it's negative, negative, the middle number should be a negative number. So we know it's plus 1, plus 1. Okay, and then 2x squared. Well, x times 2x gives you 2x squared. So I'll put x here and 2x. And just check that indeed these are the same. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times 1 times 2x is 2x. X times 1 is x. And then 1 times 1 is 1. So you do, after you combine the like terms, you do get this. So indeed, this is correct. Okay, on the other hand, 6x squared minus x minus 2, I would say that's a little tough to just do trial and error. So this one I'll try to use factor by grouping. So multiply these two, you get negative 12. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 12 and add to negative 1. And well, because product is a minus, that means one of them is positive and the other is negative. And if I say b is negative and a is positive, then this is really like two numbers subtracted because b is negative. So we're looking at two numbers whose product is 12, and when you subtract, it's equal to negative 1. And I would say 3 minus 4 is negative 1, and 3 times negative 4 gives you negative 12. So it's really these two numbers, 3 and negative 4 multiplies to negative 12. So once you figure that out, you should factor by grouping 6x squared plus 3x minus 4x minus 2. And group the first two and the second two and factor as much as you can. I see that 3x is a common factor from the first group. And this is what you get after factoring the 3x out. In the second group, I see that if you have a minus, you should definitely include that. And because 4 and 2 are both even, it's divisible by 2. So you get this, and then after you see that 2x plus 1 is again common factor of these two terms, you can factor the 2x plus 1 out, and you're left with 3x minus 2. Okay? So using this, now you can replace 6x squared minus x minus 2 as 3x minus 2 times 2x plus 1. Okay, so unfortunately here, after doing all the work, there is no common factor, right? So if that happens, then you don't have any choice. You don't have any ways to factor anything. So this is the answer. Okay, so sometimes that happens. Okay, but most likely you'll get at least one or two factors. Okay, so that's the answer.